As usual, I'm Derrick Day, and he is.
I'm Aaron Tomlinson. Glad to be with everybody.
And what's in the glass tonight, Aaron?
I was trying to look up if this drink has a name, but it is apple cider uh, with some caramel vodka, with some caramel syrup and a cinnamon stick and an apple garnish. You can't really see because it fell apart on me, so I just threw it in the drink.
Damn apple fell asleep on the job.
Yeah, but it's pretty heavenly.
Nice. I'm having a Moscow Mule, and it's a little different because I'm making it with Reed's extra ginger beer, and
All
this
right.
stuff is like super duper strong, and and the roses, lime juice, and I have some Russian vodka. Um, that I don't have here at my desk with me, but that's what it is. So and I got some more of that ginger beer that has the hibiscus in it. And I
Yeah.
started to do that, but I said, no, I'm gonna do it with Reeds tonight and see how it turns out. Because they're, just like any other drink, there are multiple variations. So
Yeah.
there it is. So
Cool.
Aaron, you are the master of ceremonies tonight. This is your TED Talk.
This is my TED Talk. So I want to talk tonight, just to have a little bit of fun with this. I want to talk about stupidity. Um, so, we're getting ready to go into another year, 2023. And I keep reflecting back to how messed up things were in 2020 and going all the way back to 2016. And I don't know, Derrick, somewhere I just feel like we all fell into a alternate time warp of stupidity. And I was trying to think of some of the examples. I came up with this idea for a topic a couple of nights ago, and I was trying to think of some of the examples that I was thinking about, but there's so many to choose from. But it just seems to me, and maybe I don't know what it is, but it just seems to me that stupidity is on the rise. Maybe it started with the Tide Pod challenge on TikTok. And remember that one?
Yeah, I remember that.
Everybody was doing that. And then you had the egg crate challenge. Remember that one?
Oh dear God, yes.
And I don't know. I mean, sometimes I wonder how you and I survived growing up, because everything has a warning label on it now.
Yeah, yeah. But here's
And
the thing: is some things like Tide. Why does Tide have to put a warning label on telling kids not to eat it? Why does it
yeah,
have to make a child? I mean, it's laundry fucking detergent. It's not candy.
yeah, yeah. I found a memory from 2020 on Facebook. I shared it as sort of an advertisement for this, where you got the Bitmoji pushing 2020 out of the way, and I put on there, remember when the chiropractor guy on YouTube told us all we needed was zinc and Schweppes water, tonic water, to cure COVID. I don't know if you remember that, but that was one
I
of the
remember
early
that.
things that came out. And then I thought, we had our president back then suggesting somehow injecting bleach into the lungs,
Yeah.
and the
Or light
government
up the house. Remember
government
that?
had to come out and say, don't do this. Like, why do they have to tell you don't do this? Or with the horse dewormer stuff, like don't go to the veterinarian or the pet store or whatever and get the horse dewormer and start taking it for your COVID. And there were people who died
Yeah.
from taking too much of that stuff. So alas, here we are, getting ready to go into 2023.
Yeah.
And the thing is, Derrick, this is the age when you have Google,
Yep. Yep.
like you can Google shit. You you don't have to remember it. You don't have to know it. You can Google stuff. You can YouTube stuff. I mean, you can YouTube just about anything. If you need to fix something or
Yep.
figure something out, you can YouTube it, and usually you'll find a good instructional video out there. I mean, we've got all of this literally in the palm of our hand, and yet stupidity seems to be on the rise.
It's really amazing. But for the sake of this discussion, I once again, through the magic of technology, we have a PowerPoint.
Yes.
All right. So we have first a dictionary definition of stupidity because, and it may seem kind of stupid to put this up, but I think that people really need to understand what this is. It's like knowing your enemy, if you will. But
Right.
basically, it's this: that stupidity is a noun, and it can be pluralized into stupidities, which I think that we're actually in the era of stupidities, Aaron.
I never knew that. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's my first time seeing it, but I thought this was interesting, and so it says, behavior that shows a lack of good sense or judgment, i.e., I can't believe my own stupidity.
Right.
And then it has the quality of being stupid or unintelligent, a comedy of infantile stupidity. But wait, as they say, there's more, right? Because in addition to a definition, I got an etymological usage chart
That's cool.
that shows basically the use of this word from like what is this, like 1800 to like 2019, and that's the range that it allows. It doesn't allow you to go past 2019. But if you look at this right here, right around 1980, right, and in 1980 it kind of dipped down to its lowest point and has been tracking upward since then. If there's ever a hidden indicator of something, dude, that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Well, let me say, not a hidden indicator, but with the advent of Ronald Reagan,
Ah.
that stupidity has been on the rise. That's the
Well,
point that I was trying to make with the chart.
yeah. I don't know if you saw the video. I remember what it was now that I wanted to talk about this. It's kind of a different take on the old trope here, but I don't know if you saw a video. It was going viral on Twitter of the lady who quit QAnon.
No.
Oh, dude, I have to send that to you. So this video went viral of this lady who I don't want to be offensive. But let's just say she's not the prettiest girl in the room.
Okay.
And and she has a piece of paper where she's written in magic marker, I think, I quit Q. And initially you think, oh, somebody's wised up, somebody's come to their senses. But she starts talking about how the archons have been running everything since the fall of Atlantis. And I quit Q because you're so stupid. You haven't done anything about these lizard aliens and these archons that have been running things since the fall of Atlantis. And then she goes on this rant about how she's not giving any more transmissions to Q from the alien, apparently, that she's been channeling or in contact with. And it was just crazy, dude. I mean, it was just like,
how did I miss that shit show?
and she's like, I quit. I'm not going to give you any more transmissions. You don't listen to my transmissions anyway. And, whoever Q is, whatever Q is, I doubt they even know this woman exists, right? And some of that could be attributed to mental illness because people can get really psychotic, they can, and it's not their fault. But then I'm scrolling Twitter and I get to this other feed I follow called The Good Liars. I don't know if you've ever seen them, but they kind of go out, interview people. And they were at some event. And this guy was one of the speakers. And he was talking about how Elon Musk is talking about going to Mars, but we've been going to Mars since, and you maybe have heard this one. This kind of fits with our conspiracy theory thing, but that the Nazis won World War II and turned their country over to the Germans and vacated for Mars, and that the Nazis have been living on Mars since the 40s, and there's millions of people that live there, and that George H.W. Bush is the leader of the Third Reich.
What rock have I been living under, man? This is good shit.
I don't know, like, and that's just like in 5 minutes of scrolling, you know. So some people do doom scrolling on social media, and I guess I do stupid scrolling or something. I don't know.
Make that a term, folks. Hashtag stupid scrolling.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's just crazy. And then I saw, you know, another one. I saw these guys, different group of guys, they were handing out shirts that said, I want to fuck Joe Biden, I think is what it said. And they were selling them to these conservative guys at this like event, and people were buying them.
Oh God.
I don't know. I probably maybe better watch what I'm saying since we're streaming on social media platforms. I don't know. They may not like.
Dude, this is gold. Gold.
And so I'm just like shaking my head, and I'm like, has there always been? I mean, has there always been this much stupidity, or is it just magnified because of things like social media? I don't know.
You know what? Here, this is my theory, right? Because, you know, people say, like, I think it was Will Smith that said this. He said that that racism is on the rise. Racism isn't on the rise; it's just being televised.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, and so, like a lot of things, you know, like we hear about child abductions and, you know, child trafficking and all of that, and we say, oh my God, this is getting out of control. No, it's not out of control. This is what's been going on. It's just that now, you know, social media makes it immediate. So
right.
what I think is that that stupidity is nothing new.
Right.
I think that the people have been stupid since the beginning of time. And this is what I think. This is my theory, right? Is that somewhere in our ancient past, humanity reached a fork in the road. And on the one fork was science, knowledge, right?
Yeah.
On the other hand was religion. And I hold true to this. I will bet a paycheck on this that religion is the root cause of most of humanity's problems. In fact, that stupidity, that corporate stupidity, because see, there's individual stupidity, which there's nothing that can really be done about that. You know, there's like and that's subject to a whole nature versus nurture debate. But corporate stupidity actually can be fixed, right? And here's the thing: religion is the root cause of corporate stupidity. Because what religion has done, and I don't care what religion it is, I don't care where it is, you know, whether you talk about like the Greek mythology, you talk about Kemet in Egypt, you talk about Judaism in the Middle East, or Islam, or Christianity, or Hindu, or Jain, or Buddhism. I don't care what it is. That basically the whole premise is that you surrender your intellect to some higher power. So in other words, let this higher power do the thinking for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and honestly, even in the love and light crowd, right? You know, when you start talking about Zen shit, right? It's like, you know, basically you're surrendering your thinking capability to this Zen power, the Zen energy, right? And then Zen basically raises your consciousness. It's not you raising your consciousness, it's something else, something external. So religion has turned everything over to something external. And so when I think about stupidity, and this tracks, right, Aaron, because here's the thing, right? Ronald Reagan was the beginning of the religious right's wet dream
Mm-hmm.
of them having political power at the highest level. And they've just been putting their foot on the gas ever so progressively until they got to Trump when the foot got on the floor. I mean,
Right.
basically, like in the old cartoons where you push the accelerator pedal where you so hard it goes through the floor.
Right.
That's where that is. So this stupidity, it's a corporate thing, and here's the funny thing, that corporate stupidity is rising with a similar trajectory to the availability of information, which you would think that there would be a negative correlation between the two, but it actually seems to be a positive correlation, that as information becomes more available, stupidity actually increases, and that is actually, that's intellectually overwhelming.
Well, it is a little scary, right? Because, like, I don't know, and I wish I could have gotten some data and stuff on this, but didn't have time to do that. But it feels like, and I'm sure people have done studies on this, it feels like our society, and I'm speaking specifically of American society, has been being dumbed down. Like, things have just been being dumbed down for the American people. Like, for example, one of the things that I think made the former guy so attractive to his followers when, the pedal went through the floor, like you said, is that he really, when you look at his tweets, I followed his Twitter line, until they kicked him off. And then I just can't bring myself to get on Truth Social or whatever that is.
Yeah.
But the man's vocabulary was so limited and so third grade. I mean, listen to Barack Obama. Even just give a stump speech.
Yeah.
Like he did in the last election cycle. And then listen to, go read some Donald Trump tweets and greatest, best ever. No one's ever seen anything like it. I mean, like, I didn't know if the man even knew more than 10 adjectives. And they were all kind of in this sort of second or third grade reading level. And I'm not trying to be ugly. I'm just being honest. I mean, if you take an honest look at it, objective look at it. And I think that for some reason, part of the reason that we don't get the smartest guys in office or leading things is because the majority of the people casting the votes don't even understand what they're talking about, because they would need a dictionary, frankly, to keep following. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And I don't know where this is coming from. I'd like to get your thoughts on it, because when I try to help my kids with their homework and stuff, I don't get the feeling, at least in my experience with the education system, it's really easy to blame the education system. And I've, recently gone on record here as saying I think that we need to deconstruct from the way education is done in America.
Yep.
But, I guarantee you that my kids are reading things and working on math problems in third, fourth, and fifth grade that I don't think I was doing in third, fourth, or fifth grade. So, in other words, it's more complex.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's necessarily the education system, but I do feel like there is this sort of, since you brought up corporate stupidity, there is sort of this dumbing down. And so I want to get your thoughts on that. And then I want to get your thoughts on, you talked about, Zen or religion, surrendering your thinking processes, your thought process, your mind to another power or higher power, or whatever it is. What about AIs? Are we going to be in trouble? I mean, so one of the things I heard, and this rang true for me. I was watching a YouTube video where a guy was talking about how dementia is setting in earlier than it used to. And they've proven, that if you use your mind to, do puzzles, to, just keep your mind active and think and work, do mental work, mental labor, that it keeps your brain sharp, and it can hold off dementia, even in people that are genetically predisposed
I suppose. Yep.
to get it, right? And so one of the things he was talking about the GPS system. And he said it used to be that you had to get a map out, you had to figure out where you were. If you were going somewhere you'd never been, you had to figure it out from a map. And then once you kind of learned the area, so you've moved quite a bit. So let's say you move into a new area, you've got to learn the area, right? But once we would learn that area, we would be making those decisions off of memory.
Yep.
And the person that was hosting this guy's an expert in this, and the person that was hosting him, I can't remember what program it was, but the person that was hosting him admitted that he had I think in-laws had moved to a new city or a new state. And whenever he would go visit them, he'd like to play tennis. So he would drive from his in-laws' house to the tennis courts or tennis club. And he'd use his GPS every single time. He said, I was there 2 weeks and I used my GPS every single time. He said, I didn't pay attention or learn the directions. I just let the GPS do it for me. So I like to hear your thoughts on, do you think society is being dumbed down? Where do you think it's coming from? And are we surrendering our mind to technology as the higher power now, so to speak?
You know what? That's a really good point, because somebody had hit me with this and they said that basically that technology could become a religion unto itself. Right.
Yeah.
And that you begin to place blind faith in technology. And here's an interesting thing. I'm going to bring this up because on my Tesla, they recently made, like, for everybody that has full self-driving installed on their car, that you have the full self-driving around town, which is a really cool parlor trick. Right? Because you get in the car, you tell it where you're going, right? And then you hit the gear shift stalk twice, and the car begins to drive. And it does everything. Now, at some point, it requires that you touch the wheel, and it also has an interior camera right above the rear view mirror that if you try to, pick up your phone and try to film what the car is doing, it'll say, you're not paying attention. Please put your device down, or something to that effect.
Wow.
So it's real. So on the one hand, you say, okay, self-driving, really cool. And now I don't really have to think about driving. But it's like you really, and I'll tell, let me say this, like, okay, just using cars as an example, because it used to be like when you and I learned how to drive, and this is a catchphrase. We use this when we're talking to people that are trying to come at us the wrong way. We'll say, hey, pump your brakes there, Playboy, right?
Yeah.
In other words, slow down, right? So you and I know when we say pump your brakes, we know exactly what that means, because we learned how to drive in an era before anti-lock brakes.
Right.
Now, anti-lock brakes means you don't have to pump your brakes anymore. You can just jam the pedal, and it's not even AI. It's more just a process kicks in that opens and closes the brakes quickly, right? So you don't have to think about it. And then you have traction control, right? So that if you're going around a corner and you're giving it too much gas, the engine it'll reduce power. It'll drop a gear, it'll hit the brakes, and it does all of this together so the car doesn't go off into a skid. So going back to when I was a kid, and I think I told you this story before, but the very first book that I ever took out of the library was a book on the country Brazil. And I don't know why I did that. I mean, I'm a 6-year-old kid, but that was, and I think that what it was is that, we had moved from Decatur, Illinois to Detroit, which Decatur, Illinois is where I was born. And I hated Detroit. I was mad that we moved there. I like Decatur. I like my life. I miss my backyard and all of the other stuff that we had, and so here we were. So the first thing, I guess, what I was trying to figure out is what do I have to learn to get out of here? Right. So I got this book about Brazil and had like the topography, you know, what the mountain ranges and what the Amazon rainforest looked like and all this other stuff, and how it, most of it was bordered up against the Atlantic Ocean and all of this really cool stuff. Um, so anyway, long story short, I learned to read maps and I learned to figure out how the lay of the land worked. And so Detroit is based on a 3-part grid, right? And this 3-part grid is bifurcated by two streets that go northeast and northwest. Gratiot to the northeast and Grand River to the northwest, right? And so you have one section of the city there, one section of the city between these two streets, and one section of, to the east of that. And once you figure that grid out, you understand which streets are running north and south, which ones are running east and west, and you figure out the whole thing. So by the time I was 7 years old, I knew where everything was in Detroit. I could help any of my adults navigate anywhere in the city. Because if they said, okay, we need to go thus and such. Okay, somebody asked Derrick, how do we get there? True story. So yes, GPS, all of these technological aids, they make us somewhat lazy, and it causes us that causes a dumbing down. Then you have the computer age, right? Like when we needed to go and do a book report, we had to go to the library. We had to understand the Dewey Decimal System. We had to pull the cards and then go and go to this section of the library to this section of the library and pull out all of these different books and all these different periodicals. And we had to do all of these things, right? So this made us thinkers. It created a generation of thinkers. But what happened was that this generation of thinkers, they came up with this idea. They said, okay, what if we were to make all that we know available to people who don't think? And that's kind of where we are. And that so you were asking about AI, and AI is part of my professional wheelhouse because I deal with this on a daily basis, right? And so the question is, will AI take over? Well, right now, no, because when like you do things like what they call machine learning goes out and looks at patterns, right? Like let's say you want to look at investment trading patterns, and so the machine learning model goes out and looks at everything from like say 2 years ago until today, and it looks at it in microsegments, like per second. And so it's learning what the market is doing, and it looks for patterns. And so based on these patterns, the machine learning learns these patterns, and then it begins to construct an AI that acts against these patterns. So for example, this is why, like back in the day in the around the turn of the century, 1999 and 2000, I was doing a lot of day trading, and this was the zenith of my financial life because I was a paper millionaire, right? I was reading these patterns and all of this and making trades and all of this, and it was very successful. But after the market crashed, after Y2K was like 2001 when the dot-com bubble burst, now you have people saying, okay, what do we do to mitigate this happening again? So what they do is they start investing in supercomputers. They start investing in Crays and thinking machines and Watsons and all of that. And they're saying, okay, we want to learn how to understand these patterns, and based on these patterns, do some predictive actions in the market against this. Well, these computers do this much faster than any day trader could, or even any professional trader could, and it understands it better. So now we're at the point where the little guy, the retail investor, can't keep up,
right?
Because AI and ML has taken over the market. And basically you have like you'll have these people, they sell these courses online. They say, hey, we figured out something that the machine hasn't figured out yet. The key word is yet. right? That conjunction yet, because it hasn't figured it out yet, but it's going to. And once it does, then you've got to find some other hidden indicator. And so you're kind of like chasing the dragon for the rest of your life. So the big question then is, okay, so now we know that the AI can do things. AI can drive cars, AI can create software, AI can do some rudimentary artwork, right? But the question is, can AI take over? And to that point, I'm going to go to a Disney film, Wall-E.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen Wall-E, Wall-E is basically and basically Wall-E is a stab at Walmart. In case plot spoiler alert, right? It's a jab at Walmart, because at that time Amazon didn't exist, and the thing was that this shopping mentality they suppose would take over the world, and basically once the world is ending, everybody gets on these massive galactic starships, and they go out and they travel until they find a habitable planet. So the AI was responsible for running everything, and
Yeah.
meanwhile the people were they were kept fat, dumb, and happy.
Yeah, staring at their screens,
Yeah.
riding around in their little motorized cars, looking at their screens.
To the point where they couldn't even walk anymore, where they were incapable of basic physical activity. If this doesn't, that movie is fucking prophetic.
It is.
And so I'm going to say I've said all this, and I'm going to go ahead and kick it back to you. But it's like, will AI ultimately take over humanity? And the answer to that is, if we allow it to, it will. If we allow it to, because the thing is that the human brain is far more elastic, plastic, agile, and flexible than any machine will ever be.
Right.
Machines have to be taught things. The human mind has to be taught things too, but there are a lot of things the human mind will figure out without teaching.
Yeah.
But if we acquiesce our responsibilities to AI, and we say AI will take over our finances, AI will take over our healthcare, AI will take over our education, and if we allow it to, then eventually the machines will figure out, logically, and this is logic, that the human isn't necessary. And then they'll try to figure out ways, they'll look at the human as a problem.
Yeah.
And then figure out how to eradicate it. But that's only, and now that's doom and gloom, but it's only if we allow it.
Right.
Because if we say, okay, I'm going to make sure that that me, my family, my kids, that we're going to continue to learn, we're going to continue to grow, we're going to continue to reshape and terraform our thinking, so that we don't rely solely on it. Because like I have this issue with my kids, because they'll get in the car and they'll GPS wherever they're going. Okay, I'm like, I'll GPS something once or twice, but then after that, I want to figure out the landmarks. I want to figure out the lay of the land. I want to understand how I'm getting there. I don't want to rely solely on this technology. So the thing is what we permit as far as AI goes is what's going to happen. And so I'm going to leave you with this as I kick it back to you, that stupidity only exists to the degree that we allow it to.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, those movies, Matrix comes to mind, where the machines took over the war against the humans and the machines. Yep. And the machines the humans just become batteries to power the machines. And I mean, absolutely, it could probably go that direction. I'm not going to say that it couldn't, but here's another possible scenario that's a little bit doom and gloomish, but maybe a little bit more near term. Because you're right, the human brain has tremendous capacities, but only if we work it, right? Only if we use it.
Yep.
And if we don't use it, we lose it, just like anything else in life. And it's interesting to think about this too, Derrick, in light of evolution, long-term evolution. Like as we become more dependent upon machines, and I'm pulling this from your illustrations with Wall-E, which, by the way, that was my son Elijah's favorite movie when he was a kid, man. We got him the little Wall-E thing for Christmas, and then the next year we had to get him Eva. He was still into it the next year. We had to get him Eva. So if you haven't seen the movie, you guys don't know what I'm talking about, but just these little robots in the movie. But is it possible that we're going to see a bigger gap in power between sort of the haves and the have-nots, or the people in power, from this sense that if collectively as society we become dependent on GPSs, we become dependent on self-driving cars, we become dependent upon the internet, so we don't have to retain information anymore, we don't have to think, that a larger section or segment of society is going to get dumber and dumber. Mm-hmm. Just another movie reference there that I threw in. Dumb and Dumber is going to get dumb and dumber. But there will still be people who will excel intellectually, but they'll kind of be at the top of the food chain, controlling these masses of society because they're easier to control because they're dumber.
Yeah. Well, the haves and the have-nots is not just going to be financial; it's going to be intellectual.
Right. And that is a really scary proposition.
Yep.
But one of the things, back to education, that I'm thinking about with my kids, I'm sure you've thought about it with your kids. What are they going to do for a living? Like it used to be, and I'm sure the schools were maybe the same way where you live, Derrick, but we had, basically 3 tracks of learning in my high school. You had a general education track for somebody that just wanted to get their diploma and get out.
Yep.
We had college prep track. Yep. Where the kids that went to those classes, they were geared to prepare you for college, what college was going to be like, exactly what it said. Yep. And then we had vocational track. And so we had a welding shop in my high school. Yep. We had an auto shop at my high school. We had an agricultural, because I lived in an agricultural community. We had an agricultural area, all these areas of the high school that were dedicated to these things, where the kids were going and learning a trade because they weren't going to go to college. And so they were going to make their living as welders and mechanics and farmers and all that stuff. A lot of those jobs are going away. Assembly, we're not just seeing factory jobs being replaced by machines that can do the jobs more efficiently. Yep. But now we're seeing, when I drive up through McDonald's to get my kids something, I don't eat at McDonald's, man. That stuff will kill you. So I feed it to my kids. I tried to. Yeah, that was bad. That was really bad. I said that. But Josiah loves McDonald's. He just always has. But now they ask, or even Starbucks, if you're going through the drive-thru, did you use the app?
Yeah.
And and it's not the kids' fault or people, don't get me wrong, but part of me wants to be like, fuck you, I'm not going to use the app. But think about it. Everybody wants you to download an app now for their company to just do whatever. And so you have apps that are replacing jobs. You have machines. Now you go do your own order at McDonald's. If you go inside, you can go to the thing, do your order, pay for it. That was somebody's job. The auto check, I just almost refused for the longest time to use the self-checkout lines because you're taking away somebody's jobs.
Yep.
And now, I don't know where this started. You could probably tell me. But they don't have those tracks in school anymore because everybody has to be the same. And I don't know if that has anything to do with what that has anything to do with, but that doesn't exist anymore, right?
Oh,
Now, if you go to college, to become a school teacher, you graduate with a degree, take your test, you're trained to educate kids, you go in a classroom, you can plan on making maybe to start, maybe $35,000 a year.
if you're lucky, yeah.
No, nobody can live on $35,000 a year, but you went and got a college degree. Now you got at least $100,000 probably in student loan debt. They actually, there was somebody at work was telling me about how they did something in back east last year. And again, I'm sorry I didn't look all this up ahead of time, but I'm just taking this off the top of my head.
All good.
Where they performed some kind of surgery, and the actual surgeon that performed the surgery, was in London.
Yeah.
So, I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm looking at my kids and I'm thinking, what are we preparing them for? What jobs are we preparing them for? What are they going to do?
Yeah.
And it used to be I thought everybody should work a service job. I thought everybody should spend at least 2 years in the restaurant business and or the retail business. Just
Yeah.
the restaurant business, especially because it teaches you how to work. There's something to be said for a work ethic. And I don't know, man. I'm just thinking, like, so what's their jobs going to be? Be a YouTube influencer? I mean, that's a real
And it's
possible
funny,
career.
it's funny that you mentioned that, because if you ask the average 15-year-old, what do they want to do when they grow up? I think that the number is something around 40%. They say they want to be a social media influencer, as if that's a real job.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know where it turned. I know, like for example, I used to turn wrenches on my own cars because, true story, I had completed enough hours in auto mechanics class in high school that I was able to sit for a general auto mechanics license when I
Mm-hmm.
graduated. And I did.
Mm-hmm.
Never used it, never put it to work, but I had it. It was in my hip pocket in case I ever needed it.
Sure.
But now, if you look under the hood of most cars, the average wrench turner can't do anything with these cars. They're too complex.
Right.
They have so many self-contained systems. There was this big thing that happened in the early 2000s with the Chrysler minivans, the Dodge Caravan and the Chrysler Town and Country and the Plymouth Voyager. And what they did is they incorporated the headlight switch, the fuse box, the windshield wipers, and there was something else into this one module. And basically, if any part of this module went bad, your whole car shit the bed. And it was so bad that not only did Chrysler have to recall these cars, there was a class action lawsuit where they had to pay people. And I know this to be true because we had a brand new Chrysler Town and Country minivan, right? So I remember when all of this happened. So as you know, manufacturing now they look for what is the most efficient way to manufacture things.
Mm-hmm.
So now you can't even get a job in general manufacturing because manufacturing is highly specialized. You have to have specific skills in order to work on an assembly line, or you're doing something that like you're doing hand finishing, like polishing or something that a machine can't do.
Right.
That's all that you're limited to. And so I think the other thing is that we put all this emphasis on the college prep track. And I think that that part of that was because the college prep track is the most profitable. That's the high value positions that the service oriented economy was going to require. And then also the financial institutions were into it because of what you were talking about, the student loan debt. So it was a win-win for corporations to basically have this college prep track. So you get people that are highly educated, that they can pay them, meager wages, like what you were saying about teachers. Because having it used to be at one point, having a college degree meant that you were going to be a high earner. That is no longer the case.
Not true anymore.
Now it's like a college degree is almost table stakes in a lot of jobs. I remember this is a true story. Zach had applied for a job as a car salesman. Now Zach is tall, he's good looking, and he's got the gift of gab. He could talk, right?
Yeah.
And they wound up not hiring him because they wanted someone with a college degree. A college degree to sell fucking cars.
Yep.
It was mind blowing. So this whole thing it's funny because like it looks like there's a dumbing down happening, but at the same time, there's an increased requirement for education. And it's funny how, again, if you look at them in terms of a curve, they're rising simultaneously, and you're not finding an intersection point. There's no convergence zone, right? But so anyway, let me get back to stupidity, right?
Yeah.
Bring it back. In education, right? On the one hand, it's college prep, but at the same time, the things that are going into college prep are not the same things that went into college prep when we were kids.
No.
It's not the advanced mathematics, the trigonometry, the calculus. It's not that. It's not the the advanced composition and English. It's not the advanced foreign languages and things like that, or economics or finance or statistics, because those were college prep classes back in the day. Now it's like, just basic, the 3 R's, and the people that attain the highest proficiency in that area are the ones that are, herded into the college prep. And meanwhile, I think that it's probably something close to 2/3 of students now are underserved, that they are literally left behind. That they're not God. And this is so funny because when I was coming up, being a young Black kid in Detroit, I told a teacher once, I said, I want to be a car designer. That's what I want to be. And they said, well, you might be better off working in the factory or getting a job, as a janitor or something like that, because what you're thinking of is too ambitious. It's too ambitious. And I'll never forget when, several teachers told me that. And now I think that's kind of where we've taken that and we moved it down, we pushed it downward. And also, and this is the interesting thing, that it used to be that was very racist, right? That was very racially motivated. But now it's not so racially motivated. It's actually classist, right? Because there are a lot of white people now that are in this group that's being pushed down. And that brings us to the era of Trump.
Yeah.
Because you're being pushed down to the point where you're not being educated, and your education is only as good as the lowest caste of Americans as a white person now. So when someone tells you that jobs are going away because Mexicans are coming across the border, or jobs are going away because Black people are taking your jobs, or jobs are going away because we're exporting things to China, and you just believe that because you don't have any higher understanding. So now someone like Trump comes in and he's able to usurp all of that and use it as fuel. Anyway,
Yeah, I mean, the attraction to Trump, let's be honest, was not that he did anything for the average American person. It's that he was angry at the system that they were angry at. They voted for him more for owning the libs. It's more about owning the libs or whatever than I don't know. But like, as far as like dumbing down in education, in my opinion, my experience, the education system is now run more like the penal system. It's all about classroom management, behavior. Not that those things weren't important when we were in school too, but it seems to be more about classroom management and less about real education in a lot of these places.
Yep.
But I will say this, if I had not gone on and gotten higher education, I'd probably still be pastoring. And not because I didn't have any other job opportunities, but it's because when I got into those college level classes, it taught me how to think critically. It taught me how to educate myself. It taught me, and I started applying those skills to the religion I was brought up to believe in, and it fell apart. So I think had I been able to go to college earlier, straight out of high school, I don't think I ever would have started pastoring or got sucked into some of the stuff that I got sucked into that now we look at and laugh about or whatever. And I don't think that made me stupid. I don't think people are necessarily stupid. But you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah.
And so when I'm looking at college, I'm thinking it doesn't really prepare you anymore, especially at the bachelor level, to be a high earner. But I would still like my kids to go to college because I think there's an element of character development and education that they're not getting at the lower levels. But at the same time, I don't want them to come out with, $200,000 of college debt and be making between $35,000 and $55,000 a year.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. And so I feel for the education system too, because I think they don't know what they're preparing kids for, because we don't know what the future is going to look like.
Well, one of the things that I think that we need to, and let me just say this: if I had to do it all over again, like my education, my post-secondary education is in management information systems, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I had to do it all over again, I'd get a degree in humanities. That's me. Because then I'd have some foundation in philosophy and psychology, and some technology, but I wouldn't be technocentric, right?
Right.
And more to the point, I think that I would have had more classical education in logic and reasoning,
right,
than what I actually have. Because we talk about a lot of things like critical thinking, and we talk about logical fallacies and all of that, and all of that's fairly new to me. It's like I got a cursory introduction to it in college, but nothing really major, right? So now I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do I get this? But I'm thinking that if you understand these things at a basic level and have some skill that you could do with your hands, that if you're an artist, if you're a painter, if you're a plumber, if you're a carpenter, if you're an electrician, something that a machine cannot do.
right.
And it could be that, excuse me, that someday you'll have robots that are sentient enough and articulate enough that they're able to do these things, but that's really way off into the future.
Right.
So I tell the kids now, like, learn how to do something with your hands.
Mm-hmm.
Obtain a skill that a machine can't do. I was having a conversation with my oldest son. He's now changed his postgraduate studies into computer science. And I said, that's great. I said, but eventually the computers are going to be able to program themselves. AI is going to get that sophisticated, and they'll be able to do things. They'll understand the machines better than we do. So their code will be tighter. It'll be more efficient. And we're not going to be able to compete with that. So I said, okay, it's good to know that, but my son's very artistic. All of my sons are very artistic. They're either musical or they can, draw, paint, or whatever. And so I say cultivate those skills, work on those, get good at those, because those are things that, how can I say it, is that artificial intelligence is not going to be able to usurp them, and that basic intellect, even basic intellect, it cannot reproduce those things, right? Basic human intellect. So the way to get unstuck from stupid is to number one, understand how logic and reason works, number one, and number two, how do you do something that a machine can't do?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if we focus in on those two things, I think that we can actually do something about corporate stupid. Now, again, individual stupid is way more nuanced, right?
Right.
But corporate stupid, I believe, is fixable. And then here's the thing. This is my shot across the bow at religion, that I really believe that as we look at like Western Europe, for the first time in its recorded history, is mostly non-religious.
Yeah.
And that trend is crossing the pond to America. That the non-religious, atheists, agnostics, right? That is the fastest growing segment of the spiritual landscape here in America. And I think that that's good, because if we can get past all the religious bullshit, then we can start, we can do something about the root cause of corporate stupidity, and try to address these things and fix that. Again, individual stupidity will always be here. Like in the Bible, Jesus said, "The poor you will have with you always." I believe that Jesus, if you really try, I need to go back and reread that in the Koine Greek, because I think that he might have actually been saying the stupid you'll have with you always. That's just my take.
Well, that's probably a great place to start reading some comments, huh?
Let her rip, man.
Let's see. Ben says there's no escape from stupidity. Same thing. There's no escape from stupidity unless you go off the grid.
No, something, Ben. I think the stupidity will follow you off the grid.
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
I wish that were true, because go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying that we had thought about that at one time. This was something that was in our family discussion. Like, okay, what would happen if we went off the grid? Could we do that? And really, I think that I was probably the weak link in that chain, because I'm the most tied to social media. But we were saying that, okay, like what happens when you go off the grid and you wind up running across somebody that's off the grid, not because they chose to, but because they were kind of off the grid to begin with, or they were forced off, and now you're back dealing with the same stupid shit that you were dealing with when you were connected.
Trust me, I live in a part of the country where people go off the grid. And that's like Forrest Gump would say, that's all I got to say about that.
But you were ginning up a thought before I
was just going to say, I think one of the things to fix corporate stupidity, and probably individual stupidity too, is Um, it's okay to not know. You know, it's okay to ask questions.
Yeah.
It's okay to admit that you don't know something. And I guess part of my definition of stupid, or what's really frustrating to me, and I know I've done this. I'm not, you know, if I'm pointing the finger out there, I got three firing back at me for sure on this. But when people talk like experts in a topic that they're not experts, at least to the experts, you look really stupid.
Oh yeah.
Like you're magnifying your own stupidity. If you don't know that you don't know, and you're talking to someone that knows you don't know, I'm just saying, like, you ain't winning any points.
Well, you know, I was in a discussion uh, about um, about quantum mechanics, and so this guy tipped into the conversation, and he said something, and he said something I really didn't quite agree with, right? But then the guy, you know, he reached out to me privately, and he said, "Listen, I'm a particle physicist. It's what I do." And so I Googled his name, and I was like, this guy is really who he says he is.
Interesting.
And so I had to go back publicly and walk something back, because you know what this guy was saying, he had substance that I didn't have.
Right.
And so I'm okay with not, I mean, you know, listen, I'm a smart guy. I know I'm intelligent, but at the same time, I'm intelligent enough to know that I don't know everything. And so when I don't know, like for example, if I don't know something about psychology or you know or clinical counseling, I'll come to you and ask you, because this is what you do. If it's a legal issue, you know, I'll ask my attorney friends, or if it's a medical issue, I ask my physician friends. I
Right.
don't know everything, and
Right.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with not knowing everything.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's an important point to bring out. Ben says, listening to this, I began recalling the musical score of Terminator 2. I hope we're not too doom and gloom tonight. Uh, wasn't the intention. It's just kind of how it went.
Ben also said, "You can't fix stupid," said some classic grandpa somewhere.
Yeah, I love that. Sandra says, serve yourself and don't get paid or discounted. Amen, Sandra. I assume you're talking about the self checkout lines.
You know, I really have I have a genuine issue with the self checkout line, and for the most part, I don't use it.
I do too. I'm the same way.
Because I'm like, okay, I'm you know, possibly screwing somebody out of a job by doing this.
Yep.
And I'm gonna tell you something. People talk about Walmart, but I'm gonna pick on another company here. Home Depot. Home Depot will only have the customer service center open, manned by people, and one register. One register that's actually has a person. The rest of the people are funneled through and the way they do this, if you look at every Home Depot, is structured the same way. The customer service desk is right when you come in, and the checkouts are right by the exit, right? But right in between those is where the self checkout is, right in the middle of the store. And that's the way every Home Depot is set up. And I'm like, so Home Depot at a certain level kind of forces you to do that. Now, when we first bought the house here and everything, you know, I was making some major purchases, so I'm going to the customer service desk, right? And so I'm forcing somebody to actually do something. But it's like if I just need some screws, I self checkout, man, that's the move, and I hate it.
Yeah. Remember that you brings up a good point though. Do you remember when retail stores hired people to be experts on their products?
Yes.
And there were people that would just wander around the retail store. Can I help you with something? And you could ask your questions about the products, and they would educate you about the products in order to sell the products.
Yep.
I mean, some of the younger people got to be like, what? like like now, I mean, not only did they have people that would ring you up, but they also had people that knew their stuff and knew where stuff was at in the
Yeah,
store. Where can I find this? Like, how many times have you wanted to find something in Home Depot, you couldn't find it, and you couldn't find a soul that you could ask, hey, where do you keep, this? Or
yeah.
maybe you weren't quite sure, maybe there was more types of, I don't know, innards that go inside the toilet than what you expected when you
Yeah.
got there and you didn't know what to get, right?
Well, see,
There's
truth
nobody
be
to ask.
told, Home Depot actually has those people, right? But they're far and few between, because watch this. You can be like to use your example, toilets, right? Because this is a real good example. They have a plumbing section,
Right,
right? And in the plumbing section, they have a subsection for just bathroom stuff. And
right,
then within that, they have another subsection that's just toilets. So you'll say, okay, what's the difference between a flush master and this flushing mechanism, right? And they'll say, hang on, let me get somebody from this department to help you. Because the average Home Depoter, you know, they don't know.
right.
And matter of fact, I was looking for a screw, um, or actually a bolt, and it turned out to be metric, and it turned out to be a very fine pitch, right? And so I'm like, okay, I found what I think it might be, but I'm not sure. So they said, okay, we need to get you somebody from fasteners to come out there. And I kid you not, it was a guy that came over there, and he had a loop, a jeweler's loop, hanging from a lanyard, and he took that bolt and put the loop up there and looked at it. He says, "Oh, this is and he told me exactly what it was. You know,
Oh,
uh, but that kind of you're making a good point, because it used to be like, you go into a hardware store and you'd have somebody that was an expert on power tools. You'd have somebody who was an expert on lawn tools. Someone was an expert on barbecue grills, right? And now it's like the majority of the people in the store, they don't know about any of that. They say, okay, let me find the expert for you. And then they got to track that guy down, and he's working with 5 other customers. So you got to wait until she
yeah.
gets free.
Yeah, but I'm thinking like, you used to go to Sears or Montgomery Wards or something, and you go to the electronics department and you're buying a TV, right? Or
Oh
you're
yeah,
buying
same
a
thing.
video game set or something.
Yep.
There were people there, they knew all the ins and outs of what makes this one different than this one. And why should I pay the extra $100 for this TV versus this TV down there? And certainly that kind of level of service just doesn't exist anywhere anymore. I don't think it doesn't in Pueblo. Maybe it does in Tulsa. Maybe it did in Phoenix, but it does not exist here. Uh, Ben Urban says the irony, Aaron, is that those people who hound you when you don't need help but disappear when you need assistance.
Oh,
Uh,
the irony.
that's great. Well, what do
You
you
know,
think?
I want to say one thing before we close, and it's
Sure.
this, right? That another thing, that there are modern day or classical philosophers or thinkers, and I've really been spending a lot of time studying their work, like Immanuel Kant, you
Hmm.
know, and then I've been reading a lot of Bertrand Russell.
Hmm.
Um, and I really think that a cure for stupidity is dedicating ourselves individually to understanding classical thinkers.
Yeah.
Whether they be contemporary or more historical. Um, but you could say what you want about Freud or Jung. These guys knew some things. They had an understanding of the working of the human mind. And I think that it behooves us to study what the works of these people. Now that, I think, will if people will say individually, I'm going to dedicate myself to a study of a person or a school of thought. that I may have overlooked in my life. So that works toward
I
curing
love that.
individual stupid. But I also think that if we have two approaches to this. One is like, let's say we start with corporate stupid and try to unpack that and fix that. Or we can take the bottom up approach and we say, okay, how do we convince individuals to take a more measured intellectual approach to life,
Right.
and then have that bubble up? So I don't know. I don't know. What do you guys think? What is the best approach? That's something that you guys can put in the comments, because I'd like to hear about that.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, I want my kids are going to a classical academy right now, and I want them to be able to get, some of that classical education. I think is important.
Yep.
Mm.
So anyway, I didn't put anything in the I didn't put the link in there for anybody to join, and I don't think anybody will. It's Friday.
Yeah, we're in that kind of weird gap of the holidays, right?
Yep.
So, by the way, Happy New Year, Derrick.
Happy New Year to you too, Aaron.
Coming up, and everybody else out there, Happy New Year. And hopefully 2023 is going to be good, but it's only going to be good to those that make it good.
Yep. Oh, I got one more I got to bring up. This one came out of left field, right? This guy, Darren Crass, says, just wondering, if you no longer believe God exists, then why would you care if people pray for you? Would it matter if they wanted to pray to a God that does not exist? So my response to him, and I responded to him immediately, I said, what does that even have to do with the subject at hand? Listen,
was it an object lesson? Sorry. Go ahead. I want to hear what you had to say, Derrick.
No. I mean, here's my thing.
Illustration on the top. Sorry.
That's like we had the one guy that came on that he wanted to talk, and I get it. Like, people don't like, and I talked about this yesterday in my unreligious show, that people like you when they can frame you.
Yeah.
When they can put you in a box, that's when people like you. But the moment that you go outside that box, unless they really love you, they're uncomfortable with you being outside that box.
Yep.
And so anyway, it bothers me. And to me, this is a case study in individual stupidity, right? Because basically you came in and asked a question that was totally ungermane to what the discussion was.
Exactly.
So anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I saw that and I was just like, what?
Yeah, I just had to throw that out there because that provided a really interesting contrast point to close the show with.
Yeah, I gotta throw one more out. Let's see. Jeanette says, Ben Urban, I see Walmart workers shopping in the aisles. Now that might be smart there. I don't know. That's great. All right, Derrick. Thanks, man. Great time as always. Thanks everybody for watching.
Thanks for watching. And make sure that if you're watching on YouTube that you click like and subscribe. Push the algorithm. If you're on Facebook, make sure that you're subscribing. You're getting the notifications when we go live. All of that helps.
Yeah.
And it helps us to make a better show for you guys. So that's the important thing.
All right, man. Thanks for coming to our TED Talk, everybody. Peace out.
Thank you.
Peace and hair grease.